we don't look at medicine as something to inspire you. Bring your inspiration to medicine. That's really what I learned from this book. Is I had a number of events in my career that I couldn't make sense of, that were vexing me. And through writing this book, I brought meaning to them. And in that process, it really helped me evolve in my thinking of what a gift it is to be a doctor.
Welcome to another episode of the Physician Growth Accelerator, a show where we break down your medical practice systems into vitals, diagnose root cause of what may be restricting your growth, and prescribe what to do about it. I'm your host, Zed Williamson, and I believe that every system is perfectly designed to get the result it gets. The freedom that gives us when we wrap our head around that concept is if we're not really excited about the outcome, that's okay. We can step back, look at the system that created it, and just tweak the system. And if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you are experiencing some kind of constraint within your medical practice that's keeping you from achieving your goals. It might feel like burnout. It might feel like you've hit a plateau. It might feel like you're doing all this work, getting busier and busier, but not achieving the things you truly want to achieve. If you do feel that, go to physiciangrowthaccelerator.com and check your vitals to see what may be hindering your growth. And for today, I'm very excited because we have a special guest, Dr. Mark McLaughlin, a board-certified neurosurgeon, impassioned physician advocate, speaker, author, sportsman, philanthropist, lifelong learner, and principled leader who leverages his academic training and life experiences to inspire and serve. And very recently, author of a book called Cognitive Dominance, a brain surgeon's quest to outthink fear. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Zed. It's a delight to be here.
So I just want to start off that I can happily recommend this book to all listeners. I read the book and it's fantastic. And instead of me kind of giving my giddy review of it first, would you mind just telling our audience from the standpoint of what they're experiencing, these surgeons, physicians in practice, what is it that you did with that book? What are you actually putting out to the world?
Yeah, it's a book that chronicles sort of my experience as I go through neurosurgery, as I experience a 20-year career in neurosurgery. And what I talk about in the book is philosophy, some performance enhancement, and really some coming to grips with some feelings that I didn't want to feel that really helped me grow, helped me become a much better physician and better person. And so it's really a book about analyzing and dismantling fear. And the conclusion I came to was, as I dismantle fear, I love more. I love my patients more. I love what I do more. I love my life more, and I'm more alive. So it's essentially a book about dismantling fear.
It was very powerful. I appreciated the approach you took. For people who listen to this podcast and know us, they know that we focus a lot on bias and heuristics. The way we talk about them is these automatic decision-making machines, and us sometimes as humans, we're dealing with this brain that was built to survive in a world 100, 200,000 years ago. And when we are not paying attention, that brain can make decisions it thinks is good for us, but is not really that good for us. And what I loved about your book is that you gave the reading audience a system to follow to actually break that down so that they are not so automatically driven. Am I off base with that description?
No, that's correct. Almost like very similar to Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow. I talk about brain 1.0 and brain 2.0. And brain 1.0 is your survival mechanisms that are constantly head on a swivel, military, looking around for threats and calculating what they are. And brain 2.0 is the one that has the higher goals, the ones that have plans and action. And oftentimes our initial reactions to events are pure survival, and they're counterintuitive to our larger goals. So it's important to be aware of those two operating systems that are going on in your brain. Another interesting way to think about it. And it's out of Ian McGilchrist's work, who I quote in the book a little bit, is it's a little bit right brain, left brain, and kind of training your brain to be a little ambidextrous. Your left brain generally is the logical, goal-oriented, focused, kind of step-by-step part of your brain. And your right brain is the brain that sees the bigger picture, that captures intuitions and body language and sounds that your left brain doesn't pick up on. I mean, he boils it down to your left brain helps you to eat your dinner, and your right brain makes sure that you don't become somebody's dinner. So it's really a way of toggling between the two hemispheres, and a way of toggling between those two systems, brain 1.0 and brain 2.0, that helps us, evolve and reach the goals that we want to reach.
Yeah, I think evolve is a really good way to put it. And as business leaders, let's say or even as a practice leader, people look up to you, and you can have people around you who are being impacted by not knowing how to break down those two parts of the brain. And if we go back in those 100, 200,000 years, just as a human in a community, one of the easiest ways to know that you are going to die would be to be ostracized by the group that you're around. And simply the idea of, if you have a practice and someone responds negatively to interaction, or if we're not understanding how we are treating other people, we can actually create that feeling that the brain is really looking at as a danger, a danger to our survival. So I'm curious, have you talked to physicians in your career who have described experiences within practice around mindset and how they might be limiting themselves, and they're starting to get awareness around that?
Yeah, I think what you're getting at, and let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. I
Sure.
think it's a concept of agreeableness or likableness versus effectiveness. Is that sort of what you're talking about? A physician who sees something that needs to be done a certain way, but it's not going to be well accepted by the group. Is that what you're driving at?
Yeah, and it's really, sometimes it ends up being both sides get protective and defensive, when really we're doing what's best for what needs to be done for the patient, and our brains are talking us into treating it as if we're in some kind of danger when we're really not.
Yes, I find that a lot with dealing with administration, particularly when they're trying to implement something new, something that I immediately perceive as a time consuming, something that's going to keep me more on the computer and less with my patients. And, the mantra, and we talk about heuristics, and, heuristics are good to follow. Many times I talk about it in my book. Dr. Janetta, my mentor, used to say, never cut what you can't see. Great allegory for life. Never make a decision. Cut. The Latin root is decidere, or something to that effect. So cutting, making a decision, is cutting. Never make a cut without seeing everything that you need to see. Always leaving a drain. Never worry about a patient alone. All those heuristics are fine. Another one is seek first to understand and then be understood. That's a Stephen Coveyism. And so particularly with administration, I constantly have to come back to, all right, what do they really want? Like, let's talk to them more. Let's find out specifically why they're implementing this. They don't know as much about medicine as I do. Maybe there's something that I can add to this and make it more effective and not make it more time consuming. Or maybe it's something that really is for the betterment of the patient, and I need to spend an extra 3 minutes or 4 minutes doing this. So that's a good heuristic to follow generally when you're faced with these dilemmas of conflicting views. Find out what they really mean, understand, make sure you're defining the terms properly too, because sometimes people, they're not precise with what their words are, and for that reason, misunderstandings happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes internally here, we speak about accounting for other people's curse of knowledge. So when someone asks a question or gives a statement, they're doing so from a foundation that you may not have. And if you just take what they state and go with it, you might be applying a different foundation of knowledge or understanding And that's where confusion can creep up.
Exactly. The more perspective somebody has on something, the better educated a decision they're going to make. But sometimes people get dug in on their perception, and it's really, really important to understand exactly what their perception is. And until they feel understood, they're not going to listen to you. So you need to really listen to them, play it back to them, and then offer another opinion. Something I often use when I'm trying to enroll somebody is put this on your menu of options. Put this on your menu. You don't have to choose it, because if you start telling people, or trying to win the argument, they don't like you taking away their thinking. They want to keep their thinking, and people don't like to be wrong either. But they're certainly willing to choose something else if they realize it's in their better interest to do that.
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious, was there a moment in your career, either something you experienced one time or over time, that really put you on the path of you must write a book? Because writing a book is not something that is easy, that is done quickly. There's tremendous effort and time. What was that catalyst?
Great question. Well, I had been traveling to West Point on a regular yearly basis to speak with the cadets in a class called the Center for Enhanced Performance. It's a sports psychology class. And so I had the privilege to be doing that for a couple of years. And when I went up there, I would ask the professor there, Dr. Zinzer, who's my colleague and friend. I would say, what pearls do you want me to share with them? And he said, just tell them what you do. Tell them what you do, how you do it, what goes through your mind while you do it. So I had a whole pack of stories that I had been telling the cadets over time. And then I just began thinking, wow, a lot of the things I've learned in neurosurgery are applicable to life. They're not just neurosurgery rules, they're life rules. And so I came up with an idea for sort of a self-help book, which was going to be the 10 rules of neurosurgery, and how they relate to life. So I began writing that book, and I submitted it to fortunately, an amazing editor and publisher who became a very good friend of mine and mentor, Sean Coyne. And he flipped it around and said, listen, I think you should write a big idea book and weave all of these stories that you have into this book. And so the big idea was cognitive dominance. Cognitive dominance was a term I learned at West Point, and the cadets there, they taught it to me. They basically taught me that cognitive dominance was enhanced situational awareness that facilitates rapid, decision-making under stressful conditions with limited decision-making time. And I was like, wow, I want more of that.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's neurosurgery, but it's also being a parent. It's also, getting a call from your kid saying, hey, I'm going to sleep over so-and-so's house. Is that okay? And you got to decide, all right, how old are they? Who are these people? What is going on there? Do I know this? Is this a good idea? Is this not a good? You got to make these decisions on the spot pretty quickly. No, it's not. You can't sleep over because of X, Y, and Z, and you got to make those choices. So that happens in life all the time.
Yeah, that's great. What I appreciate is what I feel like what you did with the book was you gave a roadmap to actually help someone move towards the idea of evolving how we look at the world, and how you break down fear and its meaning and just the tools. It's just really well done. So I'm glad you did it. So I'm glad, I'm happy that they shifted the concept to the big idea, because I think it's a great idea that needs to be spread around.
Thank you.
When you think about what you see, you've practiced for about 20 years, right?
23 now. Yeah.
23. Yeah. So what you see today, where healthcare is going, where practice is going, is there anything that just jumps at you that you wish you could scream from the mountaintops? Either something that you like that it's going in a direction, something that maybe you wish you didn't see. What hits you?
Sure. Many things, some to my fellow healthcare providers. That one is, we don't look at medicine as something to inspire you. bring your inspiration to medicine. That's really what I learned from this book is I had a number of events in my career that I couldn't make sense of that were vexing me. And through writing this book, I brought meaning to them. And in that process, it really helped me evolve in my thinking of what a gift it is to be a doctor, of what a gift it is to be able to provide care to somebody, to serve them in an important and critical way. And so it really brought me to gratitude. So for the physicians and the healthcare providers, the nurses and PAs, anybody that's suffering from burnout, stop looking for inspiration in your work and dig deep within you and bring the inspiration to your work. It's a privilege to do what we do, and don't let outside forces take that away from you, because you're responsible for how you feel. You're responsible for what you bring to work, and nobody or no change in medicine is going to change my love for it and my love for patients. So that's my rooftop message to the physicians. To patients, at this point, I want them to, the word is buyer beware. Buyer beware, because there's a lot of marketing going on in medicine that is misleading, and you need to be aware of it. And particularly in areas of plastic surgery and in spine surgery, it's really becoming the wild, wild west out there. There are people who are performing procedures in spine surgery, people who are performing procedures in cosmetic surgery that are not qualified, never been certified in those procedures, and they're tricking the public. There's a recent article about a woman in Los Angeles who went for liposuction at a cosmetic surgery center in a strip mall, and she died of an anoxic brain injury. Turns out that the physician performing the liposuction was a pediatrician, a pediatrician. And there are a lot of examples of this. So when you're looking for procedures, make sure that you're getting a person who does it that is certified, board certified in that particular area. Shop around, get several opinions, and really, really understand that convenience isn't what you should choose for your medical care. There's a reason why liposuction shouldn't be done in strip malls. It's a procedure. It's a serious operation. Similarly, in spine surgery, I'm seeing a lot of my patients being offered, quote, procedures when they're actually surgeries that are being performed on them by people who are not surgeons. And it's very important for people to really check out the credentials and compare them with other physicians and get multiple opinions. Because some of the procedures I'm seeing that are being done on people's in their spine, they're not successful. It sometimes makes the surgery more difficult when we need to do it. And don't believe just because you're going to a surgeon, you're going to get surgery. You're going to get an opinion from a good surgeon of all of the options that you have. And so that's really, really important. We have a rule in surgery that I think is a very good rule, and that is don't do any procedure that you can't take care of the complications from. And what's happening out there is people are getting procedures that are done by unqualified or less qualified caregivers, and that is resulting in bad outcomes, and patients are not being served.
You know, it's interesting and sad, you know, from a patient experience standpoint, patients will spend more time researching the restaurant for Saturday night, the car they're going to buy, what kind of furniture, than they will someone who's going to potentially do surgery on them. So I think it's a really important message. And it actually, I believe it ties back to what you talk about in your book, because if there is a patient who maybe has a lower level of health, is in some kind of physical pain that might make them not sleep as well, we're putting all this cognitive load on their ability to make good decisions. And then we're hoping that person advocates for themselves. And so if someone's not there to tell them, hey, be sure you do this, it's unfortunately not surprising.
That's why it's really important to not make these decisions on your own, to come to a surgeon's office, or a caregiver's office with a friend or a colleague. Because when we're not well, we're not at our best, and we don't make our best decisions. When you're in pain and sleep deprived, you're not making your best decisions. So you become desperate. So important to bring loved ones with you, or a friend or a colleague that can offer a different perspective.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I really appreciate you taking the time and spending it with us today. Uh, Obviously, I enjoyed your book. I highly recommend it. And
Thank you.
for listeners, follow Mark on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. The content is very good. You're going to get something out of it. And also, you can visit markmclaughlinmd.com to see information about coaching, self-growth, getting your head around your own operating system. And then finally, buy the book. We'll put a link directly to Amazon for that book in the show notes of this podcast. It's a book that everyone should read, honestly. As a father, I already have a copy coming for my 20-year-old son. These are tools that the younger we learn them, the more evolved we can be in how we operate mentally every day. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.